Uranium stocks had a very big pullback today. We're going to discuss the shorts that are shorting uranium. We're going to look at a lot of data. There's a lot of good news to cover. The spot price of uranium went down about $1 on the ask. It is about $53 right now. But if you look back to last year, it was only $35. So we are still way ahead of schedule with this fall refueling. And there is now a short sell rule for a lot of uranium stocks. We'll talk about that. We'll look at the charts. We'll look at a lot of data. I'll answer a lot of y'all's questions, especially if you guys are subscribed. So thank you guys. The last video, we've got over 1,000 likes. Let's get this one to 1,400. We can still do it. And I want you guys to give your like number below and give me your question. I'm going to do a big Q&A video probably next. And you guys got to be subscribed for me to answer it. I can see if you guys are subscribed or not. It's free. You guys get instant data when I get this information, all the news that I put out. It'll be in the community tab. So go ahead and just subscribe. I want you guys to really know, especially if you're new to uranium, 1 year ago when Sprout Physical Uranium Trust was getting up and going, buying, and more than they're buying right now in the spot market. They didn't buy anything today, yet the spot price is still up to now about $52.80. So it's close to $53. The futures are still up, but last year it was $35.75. And why do I say this? This is important because we're way ahead of schedule. That's a big difference. And we have not really seen any buying coming in from Sprott like we saw last year, 1 million pounds or more in a day. That could come. The uranium stocks today had a very big pullback. You can see all of them right here. And most of these were more than 10%. And now if a stock has a 10% pullback, then it is in a short sell rule, which means the next day, shorters, if they're trying to buy the stock back, they actually have to buy it back on an uptick. They can't do a short down ladder, make the stock go down, and they cannot buy back if it is literally going down. It has to go back up, and that's when they can cover. So usually you see somewhat of a good recovery, but tomorrow's Friday. So this is the sales data for UEC. These were the highest shorted stocks in the energy sector overall. Now, a lot of these big buys were in the dark pool. And one of you asked me in the last video, a couple of you actually, that what is a dark pool? And could I explain it in this video? So, and what does this mean basically for shorts? The person that asked this question was subscribed, so of course I'm going to answer it. But the dark pools, they are basically a pay-to-play area where a person, high net worth individual, funds, they can buy and sell stocks, short them, and they're not going through the same routing system that a normal broker would do. Now, it is also not going to be publicized right out there where everyone can see it, these market makers on level 2 and everything. And it's not really going to move the stock itself like it would in the normal routing. Now, there have been manipulation. A lot of firms have been fined because there is manipulation going on with this. But when I see this, a lot of big buying, especially on a day that the stock still, like today, doesn't have record volume. It's not like we had crazy news, any black swan type news. But when you see this, this is a telltale sign. I saw the same stuff early on with GameStop. Now, I'm not saying that this squeeze is going to necessarily happen. I am just saying that this is data I'm looking at. I watch the level 2, especially when I'm day and swing trading all the time. Now, as I said, guys, in this video, some of you guys, I love you guys, but some of you guys are like, oh, why are you, still holding cash? Why are you going to day trade? And when I day trade big positions. And it's, very big positions. Sometimes, usually $250,000 at a minimum for these uranium stocks, and $250,000, 10, 20% in a day, like these uranium stocks have done. Multiple days, we go up like that since last month. You're going to have a really good upside. And I know where uranium stocks are going. Now, I'm not telling anyone to do that day or swing trade, but that is one of the reasons why, because really the only people making money in these stocks are people who are day and swing trading. That's really just the name of the game right now. But we also see Cameco. Now, it closed down today, not as much as the other ones. It was only minus 2%. And this was pretty steady all day. And it's still around 29 bucks, close to, but we saw the exact same thing. Some pretty big buys here, right? And the other one that was highly shorted was UR Energy. Same exact thing. We've got all throughout the day. And of course, this, as I said before in last video, I do usually see this type of thing, this type of movement when a stock is not just being shorted, but when a stock there's information out there or big investors believe that the stock is going to go up, especially if they're buying. And the same thing, if they want to get in, obviously, to these stocks beforehand, before the big run, this is what they're going to do. And you can buy a lot of shares in Cameco. You can buy and sell 30,000 shares almost, right? Without really moving it all at once. Because if you're trying to get a big position, it's going to take a long time, especially in say a smaller stock. It's going to take a while, but especially when the spot uranium is up, it can really move the stock if a big fund is trying to come in. Now, this was some pretty good news. So can the lost decade of nuclear power be recovered with the next generation innovative reactors? Now, these reactors that they're looking at, they're going to be the innovative light water reactor, 3rd generation, small modular reactors, the high speed furnace reactor, the high temperature gas reactor, molten salt furnace reactor, and the nuclear fusion furnace reactor. So this is what Japan is actually looking at. Now, what is interesting is Japan, we all know that they're looking to restart up to 17 nuclear reactors, these restarts, but there is a possibility that they could have another 10, which are under review. So these could be added. So we could actually see 27. And we could also see more advanced reactors that I just talked about that's actually in this article. It is very likely that this is where these things are going. And because all of these reactors, we have not just 17, we have 27. Their fuel, they are needing to go into the market. And Cameco is actually over there right now, CCJ Cameco. They're talking about fuel contracts. Now, they did have a contract, $1 billion contract with Uzbekistan for fuel. This was in 2020. I let you guys know about that a long time ago. And recently I updated you guys on it. Now, they also remember the Japanese fuel cycle. They restarted one of their fuel plants. And this is the first time ever. So this is signaling, and not only this, in the article it was saying that they are running low on fuel at a lot of these nuclear power plants, especially if you start up 17 or 27. This is pretty crazy if they start up 27, because a lot of these plants, they recycle the fuel, right? Future, they're actually looking at MOX fuel recycling. So with them recycling some of the reactors that have went down, they have a lot of their fuel. They like to keep a lot on hand, and they were looking into the market to possibly sell a lot of this stuff, but a lot of these reactors are going to need it. So this is demand, future demand that really wasn't accounted for, and they will more than likely look to get a big 10 plus year supply. Now, I know a lot of people out there were talking about how they think Japan already has enough fuel. Well, they might have enough fuel for certain restarts, but remember, they like to keep a lot on hand. And also 27 reactors, there's no way that they have enough already. And they would not be restarting their fuel plant. By the way, this fuel plant had been trying to get restarted since I believe it was the 90s, Mitsubishi. So that is very positive. And you can see what the opportunity for the future of nuclear is. I mean, 27 would be phenomenal. Some updates on UEC. So this is UEX, this is a company that now UEC owns. They just did an update with their West Bear mineral deposits. Now the indicated is about 295,000 tons, and this is going to be a cobalt. It's a little bit higher grade, and nickel as well than what they previously expected. This was back in 2020. And I really think that UEC, some of you are asking me this, so I'm reporting on it. The UEC, I think it would be great for them to get rid of this. There's plenty of companies up there that probably would like this type of asset. And I think it is very important for uranium companies to stay focused on uranium. So I do think that it would be smart if they got rid of this. I really do hope they do. So this is what the overall market looked like today. It actually started to recover end of day, and it was pretty rough early on. And that's really what pulled down a lot of uranium stocks. But if you look at the 5-day on UEC, you can see just it took off, and look at the volatility. This is why day and swing trading is where it's at. And I mean, if you can get in right before a news breaks and ride it up, get out, take your profits, don't be stingy, don't be a pig, and then boom, it goes back down, and you can just buy in again. I mean, look at this. And you can see back at the end of the day what was really happening. Look at the end of the day, look at the buying volume coming in right at the end of the day. And the same thing with the selling volume, all gone. So day trading, swing trading is really where it's at in this market. Long term, we know these stocks are very likely to be up. Energy Fields was one of the ones that was down a lot more, 10.7. UEC recovered a little bit more, but just look at this drop. Look at how much it's dropped since then. It's dropped almost 13% earlier. It tried to recover into day as well. It just couldn't get back up. And now this has a short sell roll. But I mean, if you're still looking back, I mean, it's still doing good, right? It's still from that bottom back August 22nd. It's still up, close to 29%. So it's, you know, a lot of new investors probably got scared. This one, I think more and more of the buyers are coming back because they're starting to see that right now, this company, they're making a ton of money. There's record prices going up, and they still have these contracts for record low prices for SWU. And when we're seeing UF6, all these go up, it's really signaling that these companies, these utilities are coming back into the market. So it's really good for a stock like that, in my opinion. But Cameco, I mean, look at them. Pretty much everything the same. Starting to get really interesting here. Volume today wasn't outrageous, only 12 million for UEC. And I believe like the average, just the 10-day, not even close, didn't hit it yet. Had that initial sell-off, then the market was down, I think 1.6% at the time. Like I said, it recovered. Tomorrow's a Friday. We will see where that goes tomorrow. I think the fact that uranium pulled back a little bit had some people scared too. If we just looked at that, it's close to 53 bucks and it was 35 last year. It's gone up. Look at each base, and look where we're at right now. We're right here. We're a little bit above this. So we're starting to break out, you know, it's turning into this fall refueling, and this is looking really good to me. The price of uranium, yes. And remember, for all you new people, the spot uranium market is usually very small. It's not like the long-term market. So 100,000 pounds could actually move it down. You know, you saw the bid go down a little bit. You saw the ask go down a little bit. It's not like there's record volume coming in to the markets here. And Sprott Physical Uranium Trust didn't even buy anything today or yesterday, really. So the past, you know, few days, this really run up, it's other players. And we know that there's refueling coming. We know that there is this overfeeding coming. So right now where uranium is at, I'm very happy. And this is where I said, you know, the uranium market's going to go up with Sprott Physical Uranium Trust as long as we, you know, have that. I called the market. I said that the market needs a correction. The overall stock market, pretty much everything's been spot on. Guys, I want you guys to stay relaxed. Don't worry about it, especially if you're a long-term investor. But right now, really, the only people that have been making any money is someone who's taking profits on these big swings up and down. Now, if we're going off based on the last year's fueling cycle, this is going to break out past 65, 70 bucks, because you can see each time all these spikes were always during the fueling cycle, spring and fall, spring and fall, spring and fall. And this year we've got inflation and we've already got a head start. We're already at $53. So that really is where it's at. I mean, you guys know that they do need more uranium. If they were buying last year, then they really do need more this year, especially with this refueling. There's a lot of reactors going down, not just in the US, but in Europe. There's refueling in Europe going on as well. Uranium was still up there. Gas went back up again. And now we're starting to see crude up again. This is a good sign. And a lot of this is oversold. I think the governments around the world are doing everything they can to get the prices down. UK to invest 700 million euros into EDF, Sizewell nuclear power plant. And it's close to 1.7 billion fund that's already allocated to this. And they need at least about 20 billion. So this was, you know, Boris Johnson's final hoorah going out. Korea's nuclear renaissance. I love that. Everyone's starting to use that word now. This nuclear energy renaissance sends atomic power stock soaring. By the way, Korea is just up on it with nuclear. It's really crazy what they're going to be doing there in Egypt. Look at the shares move just in August for a lot of these companies there in Korea. 46% for BHI, a company. Now, these are all related. And by the way, the Korean stock exchange, it says here, was 0.8 for the month. So because of that, the 10 reactor build there in Egypt, a lot of these stocks are seeing it. So it's not just related to America, everyone. So there are big funds all over that probably want to invest in uranium as well. And that's really what's next. When we see record UF6 and SWU and the volumes coming in, they need U3O8 next, which is that physical uranium. And if there's long-term contracting coming, which we know there is, and big long-term contracting comes in, that's when these prices are going to go up. So I really did like this article, Russia's stronghold on the world nuclear power cycle. It's not just about mining is what they said, and they use a lot of good data here. So I will talk about some of this stuff just to reiterate and really get it fresh on your mind. And remember, this Russian uranium ban is still on the table. Now, Russia could ban enrichment on uranium, and this could send a shockwave through the world. And as you know, this is a nice visual of the biggest uranium producers, especially if you're new. You can see Kazakhstan, this is Russia's ally, and this is per year that it's mined. And you got Namibia, Canada's next right there. And of course, the United States is down here. This should just be a zero because it's pretty much nothing. Now, in the future, that's what we're looking at, US producers. That's why they have the biggest upside. All those stocks, they are where they're at right now. But when they get a market share, when they come back, and I think that they could actually jump up to this area, somewhere like Uzbekistan, Australia, Canada, maybe even higher. We saw 43 million pounds in 1980 from the US. So this could actually happen again. Now, the world uranium conversion capacity, this is where it's different. And I really like this chart as well. You can see France about 8%, Russia is 38%, Canada is 28%, and then China actually has 25%. And Russia is really the one, that's the big issue here, is because the world, a lot of these reactors rely on Russia. And I believe it's 72 reactors, 73 reactors worldwide. The enrichment capacity, you can see this is back in 2018, 2020, and then 2030, what they're trying to do. And you can see these are the companies, and this is Russia's Rosatom. Look at the market share. Look at how much the world is relying on Russia. This is why it's an issue. And now there are other countries, obviously. A lot of people, I think, thought the HALEU, the US and Russia, that's the only two countries. But that's HALEU. That is not even being used right now commercially throughout the world. That is not what people were talking about when they're talking about this enrichment capacity. So as long as you can see China, the United States, Orano, you can see the UK, Urenco, and then obviously Rosatom really has a stronghold here. So that needs to change. And that's why the Biden $4.3 billion for US enrichment, I think, is very likely coming very soon. This is another nice chart. This is the purchases of natural uranium. You can see Kazakhstan here, the US, 38%. Okay. And then you got Canada here, 16%. This was in 2021. And then 15% you can see here. This is Australia. And then other, this is going to be all these other sources. And then of course, right here, we've got Russia, which is about 15%. This is natural, this is physical uranium. So Russia and their allies, this makes up a bunch. This is where we get most of our uranium from in the US. And the EU actually gets more from Russia. Now they are not as reliant on Kazakhstan, but France actually does rely, I believe France relies almost 80% on Kazakhstan. Now exporters of nuclear plants, so Russia's about 15, South Korea 4, China 2, and France is 2. And this was abroad provided between 2012 and 2021. Now, a lot of this is changing. China's going to be up here and they're probably going to be taking this spot very soon. And especially because Russia, these companies, they're having a lot of issues right now because of obviously all the sanctions. So in the future, I think South Korea as an investment in China, especially, they're going to take a lot of this market share. And there needs to be new investments obviously in this. And the governments are really, France, the government's obviously taking over. And this chart I liked as well. These are the 50 countries with some level of nuclear cooperation with Russia. So you can see that Russia, everyone really relies on them. Pretty much every big country in the world that has nuclear is going to rely on Russia in some ways. So the only way that these governments are going to not rely on Russia anymore, and this is a positive thing, they're going to need to invest more money, billions of dollars, into the enrichment, into the education, into the safety. And that's what these countries are doing. That's why it's a nuclear energy renaissance. So this is a positive thing. Countries have woke up because of what's happened, and they can see that there needs to be no more reliance on Russia, not just for enrichment and uranium, physical uranium and Russia's allies, but really to start their own programs and rely on other countries that, like Korea. Like Korea's got an amazing program they're starting up. They're doing phenomenal. This is a positive thing. And by the way, she did a very good job reporting this. And this website was Radio Free Europe. They did a really good job. Now I want to show you the next thing. This is something you're not going to see on TV. This is China is experiencing the most severe heat wave recorded in the world in the last 70 years. And this heat wave has severely impacted China's hydropower capacity and has caused rolling electricity blackouts. So people are going into caves there. People are sleeping on the water. And I'll show you guys this video. So these are people in a natural springs in this like cave. They've got people literally sleeping on the water you're about to see. It's really sad what's going on. Look at this. They have these like beds on the water. And it's just so hot there. They haven't seen this. Now, I think a lot of you probably going to comment, you're like, I'm from Arizona. That's what a lot of these comments said. And it's like, that's just a normal day, or I'm from Texas. But a lot of these people are not equipped, especially if you guys are in Arizona or Texas, you guys have an air conditioner. A lot of these people, they don't have access to that stuff. Some of their living areas are very tiny. People are using umbrellas to cover from the sun. I don't know what's going on, but the way they're looking at this, I mean, look, it melted. Like, is there a hole in the ozone? I mean, this is kind of crazy. Well, it's kind of a cool umbrella. I mean, and this tree is on fire? Like, what is that? Maybe someone threw their cigarette in there, but obviously there's heat strokes. This person passed out, and it's nice. All these people have these fans and they're fanning each other. I mean, you only see that happen usually at a rave, but that is something that I think everyone needs to be aware of, that this heat wave, this energy crisis, this is only going to get worse. That's just one little area of the world. And that had got like 5.6 million views. So the world is starting to wake up. And I think that's why we're seeing this energy renaissance, really. Now, this is something big from China, very popular. And this is why I said in the next decade, uranium could hit $1,000 a pound. And this was because nuclear being used in space, NTPs, small modular reactors, these nuclear thermal propulsion units. And this is interesting because actually NASA had said that there is big competition right now. And China is really the one moving forward on nuclear power in space. China's Ministry of Science and Technology approved a space nuclear reactor program aiming to generate a megawatt of electricity. This would be able to power 10 international space stations. Now, Space News, they said they cannot explain why China is looking for so much power. And Space News said that they have not been able to explain why China is looking for such a powerful reactor, they haven't released any technical data for this. Now, these space missions often pivot to nuclear power when the sun is far away or in zones of areas where there's weak sunlight. Strategic competitors, including China, are aggressively investing in a wide range of space technologies, including nuclear power and propulsion. Now, this was the NASA senior advisor, and the United States needs to move at a fast pace to stay competitive and to remain a leader in global space community. We know that if there is big competition in space, now these small modular reactors, they're not going to use as much uranium and NTPs, but countries around the world, if they start, India, all these other countries start to push nuclear power in space, you could see another demand for uranium and nuclear getting more funding from around the world, these programs. And this is just something that I think really is the future. So there are uranium stocks that I am looking at to establish these long-term positions. And US producers have the biggest upside because of the market share. When they get back into production and can secure that market share, their valuations can grow a lot more when they especially get these contracts at higher prices. So I'm going to go over also in this video, these are my trading rules, or these are some of the things that I've adopted that have helped me do really well in the markets. And a lot of these I've adopted, I've came up with, and they are really something I want to share with you, especially if you're a new subscriber. And right now, especially in these crazy times in the market. These are the rules. So have a strategy and stick to it. If it works, reassess your plan regularly and change as the uranium bull market begins a new round. And what I mean by that is I was day and swing trading this year and I was doing very well. And that's what's pretty much worked. So that's what I'm going to be sticking to. And it's worked out very well. Trade what is being traded and then invest in what is being hated. And that has really helped me a lot. Obviously, I like to trade stocks in the big boards for uranium, especially because they got to be liquid. I don't want to be able to move the stock with me buying it. That's not very smart. When I invest in the stock though, it might take me forever to get a position, especially if it's a small market cap. I talked about earlier, those small market cap stocks, that's something that I really look for, something that's hated, something I think that's very undervalued. And we've discussed this in the Discord, by the way, about what stocks, I don't have enough time in this video, that I think are undervalued, especially right now, and that I might do a long-term investment in. Next thing is ignore the noise. You get a lot of people, especially on a down day, they might be talking mess about uranium stocks or about the overall market. And, you see this a lot from other investors in other sectors, crypto or silver or gold, possibly. You just got to ignore the noise. The next one is track my wins and losses. When I'm day and swing trading, I track everything. And this year was one of my best years ever, which is crazy because the market was down so much, but it's because I stuck to my plan. And I did not get greedy. I was buying and selling when I thought that the stocks were undervalued in uranium, and I was, there's crazy news, black swans, I was buying, and then when things were going up, I was selling and taking profits, and it worked, so I tracked it. Next is protect profits and cut losses. Now, this is very big, protecting profits, and this is probably one of the most important things in investing is to protect profits, protect the money you already have invested, and to cut losses early. I never marry a stock. I'll talk about that in a little while. And the next thing, stocks have sense memory. So stocks really do not trade the same. You guys got to know market cap and really the share structure has a lot to do with how the stock's going to trade. Now, if the stock has a tiny market cap and it's say on the big boards like Centrus Energy compared to some of the other stocks, it can move a lot when volume comes in. But a stock with a massive amount of shares, a billion shares that's trading at $1, you can get tens of millions, hundreds of millions of volume come in, and the stock could still do a lot less move than a lot of other stocks would. And not every stock performs the same. Just because the chart looks the same, you really got to dig deeper. Keep winners and get rid of losers. This is simple. I like to keep the winners, and that's when I'll usually sell, if especially long-term investments in stocks or uranium stocks, and I'll get rid of the losers. Don't be afraid to be down in the stock. This is something important. I'm not afraid to be down in a position, a swing trade, especially if I know the stock is worth it. If I know that the uranium stock should be a lot higher. If I know that uranium prices have to be higher. So a lot of these swing trades as a uranium investor, knowing as much as I do about the stocks and about how the sector trades, I never get afraid like today when a stock is down. And I'm still up in my swing trading positions in uranium. I never margin a stock that I don't have money for. I'm very heavy cash. So I don't even margin anyways. I don't need to. Now, just so you guys know, I never short hardly anything in the entire stock market, especially not uranium. I would never short a uranium stock ever. Next, I said earlier, never marry a stock or a sector, but keep the door open. And this is a lot of people's problem. This is why a lot of people don't do very good in the market. They marry a stock and they marry a sector. There's times in the past few years that when uranium wasn't doing too well, I would go and buy or sell or trade something else. Now, that's a big one. Diversification does not diversify you. It dilutes you. The next one, if management is not invested, neither should buy money. So if management and buy invested, it doesn't necessarily mean putting a lot of money into the company. Next, when I buy and sell, I'm looking to swing trade uranium. Sometimes I'll have low bids in that I never would have expected. And a lot of these bids actually got hit, meaning I bought the stocks that were going down during that Black Swan event. I was able to buy them. And then I have high sell orders sometimes in those same stocks. And they sometimes get triggered when we have these crazy jump up days, right? Next, remove emotions. Think of an investment as part ownership in a company. Now, this is really important because a lot of people see investing in stocks. They don't necessarily see it as that. Now, when I buy a stock and I'm going long-term, I expect the stock to go down. And you might laugh at that and say, wow, but I expect it to go down, especially in a volatile sector like this. But the way I see it is if I start a company, an actual company, we're not going to be making profits this very same day. You're going to have expenses, all these things. And, obviously if it's a good company, you're going to be able to bring in some cash flow very quickly, but you are not expecting to be profitable day one. So that's the way I look at a stock sometimes. And it helps me remove the emotions. Okay. It helps me remove the emotions, especially if I'm long-term in it. Like today, if it went down 10% in my position, I expect the stock to move up way higher than this, obviously, so I'm not going to be emotional about that. Next, move funds and ideas to sectors and stocks that are working and will be needed soon. This was a big one for uranium. This was one of the reasons that I went into uranium stocks, is because I knew they were going to be needed. But when I got in, they were hated. We talked about this earlier. Some stocks can trade differently than others and react to volume in different ways than others. Now, a lot of people, they'll look at the chart and they'll see the stock moved a certain way. There's a pattern, there's this or that, but it does not mean the stock's going to trade that way. And you can see this if you look at the top stocks that are breaking out in the market daily. You can go and see those, and you can look at their charts, and you can look every time they broke out, they had news. There was a fundamental catalyst usually for that, but not every stock that trades on news like that is going to do the same type of move. Next, invest in management teams that you would start a business with. So this is important. This is something I look for. And then trust yourself, perform a stock MRI. This is what I call it. Call the management team, go to the investor relations page, go call them, email them, read the annual reports, see insider filings, and zoom out on the chart. You really got to zoom out and look at the big picture. Go look at old annual filings. This is what I like to do. Read old annual reports and then compare them with how the companies ran now. And that really will determine how the company's going to do. Now, uranium stocks have been in this bear market for the past decade. So of course there's going to be, issues going along. They had to dilute, things of that nature. But you know, really doing a stock MRI is going to set you apart from everyone because nobody hardly reads annual reports. So if you go and read annual reports, you go see insider filings, you go and see the presentations, you read all that stuff, you're going to be one step ahead of everyone. The answers are all out there. The data is all out there. Most people don't want to see it and they don't choose to see it. They don't want to take the time to do it. So go and do the research, do the due diligence on these stocks, and you'll be surprised at what you find, especially when a stock is very undervalued. That is how I've done really well. So guys, hopefully you liked this video. Hopefully that kind of pepped you up for the week. Uranium is still up. It's very high compared to last year. Remember that. Now give me your like number and give me your question below. But remember, I'm only going to answer the questions if you're subscribed because there's going to be a lot of questions. I don't want the videos to be too long like this one. And after this video, are you thinking about possibly day or swing trading stocks or uranium? And if you want access to this sheet, all this stuff, there's a link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for the support. And I really hope to see all of you all in the Discord very soon.